The Rams stomped the Seahawks in their season opener. We have everything you need to know. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your 1-0 Los Angeles Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Just past 8,000 subscribers, trying to get to 9,000, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button. My name is Doug McKay. My friends call me D-Mac. We're covering LA sports for over a decade, for Sports Illustrated, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. Sanders' 8th season covering the team. The Matthew Stafford to my Puka Nacua, Mr. Travis Rogers, the People's Champ. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And just a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job free. Terms and conditions apply. Travis, we're celebrating a victory Monday here on Locked On Rams. A lot to unpack on this one, but the Rams, they get the dub in week 1. Beat the Seahawks by a final score of 30-13. They absolutely curb stomped Seattle in the second half, going on a 23-0 run. Sean McVay improves to 6-1 in week 1 games. This is one of the most satisfying wins I can think of in quite some time. But the Rams, they look good. They look like a team that could sneak into the playoffs.
They could not have had a better opening act. This was exactly what you were hoping for. If you were trying to lay out a plan for how the Rams would look good, it would look exactly like this. It would look like a quarterback who is healthy and accurate and plugged into the offense. That's what Matthew Stafford was. It would be an offensive line that kept that quarterback clean as a whistle all day long. It would have some very important guys that you drafted fairly recently step up and make big plays in the absence of your star wide receiver being out. They did that. You'd get some pressure on the quarterback. Your back end of your defense would stand up pretty well, and that's exactly what they did. The coaching, the game plan was on point. The special teams were good enough along the way, but this is what you're looking for in a debut, and it's exactly what the Rams needed. It's exactly what they got, and I couldn't be happier about what we saw yesterday afternoon in Seattle.
And they proved to themselves they can have success without Cooper Kupp. No Kupp, no problem. Guys stepped up. I think it was a collective effort, but we have to start with the quarterback. My first big takeaway is a lot of people owe an apology to Mr. John Matthew Stafford. People underestimated a healthy Matthew Stafford. He looked like the Pro Bowl Stafford once again, the 2021 Stafford, a guy that when it comes to pure arm talent, he doesn't take a backseat to basically anyone in this league. He looked fantastic out there. He looks rejuvenated. He looks re-energized. And I see people out there just disrespecting him all offseason, not including him as the best quarterback in the NFC, not including him in the top 10. How about Madden ranking him a 75? I think it's time to apologize to Matthew Stafford. I want to see a lot of pundits and a lot of experts out there posting that Shaq meme today where it says, hey, sorry, Stafford, I was unfamiliar with your game. I want to see that today, Travis.
Look, he had 3 things working for him coming into this one. And in order, number one, most importantly, by a mile, he's healthy. And he looked like it. That you go back to last season, and the everydayers have heard me say this a lot. You almost have to throw last season in the garbage because of the offensive line and because of Matthew Stafford's health. He didn't work with the team during the offseason. He wasn't able to throw during training camp. Remember him on the sideline with the towel. So number one, more than anything else, Matthew Stafford was physically healthy. That ball was coming out of his hand in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. Number two, this is his 3rd year in the Sean McVay offense. We got spoiled, D-Mac. I think all Rams fans got spoiled by the fact that he showed up, and I know he's a veteran guy, I know he's a smart guy, and I know that he wasn't Jared Goff, and we just assumed that, oh, okay, he's got this whole thing figured out. Well, he won the Super Bowl, so it's hard to argue that he didn't. But the fact of the matter is his third year in this offense is going to be better than the first year in the offense. He's even more familiar with what Sean McVay wants to get done schematically. And I think that showed in particular with some of the new guys that he was able to get them open the way that he was. And lastly, what you just said. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Athletes love to play pissed off. Athletes love to play with the nobody believes in us thing. And I think there was a lot of that going on. Look, I'm not gonna front. I'm not gonna pretend that I thought I saw what happened yesterday was coming. I did not think that this team could do that. And I really didn't think that they could do it in the very first week of the season. I was wrong. He was great. And I can't wait to see it again. He was absolutely as good as you could have asked for, in large part because they kept him very, very clean.
Absolutely. I love all those points. I want to talk about the fire and the grit and the passion you play with. But I will say, though, you did predict that they would win this game. I mean, the Rams are 1-0 in the Trav and DMAC Locked On Rams era. So I had them winning 30-27 with a Maher kick. They ended up winning 30-13. You had them winning the game as well. But I mean, just to talk about your point on Matthew Stafford, you're talking about someone who, I think one of my big takeaways is this guy has a third act. This guy, his story is not finished. I think that one thing I want to ask people out there is name 5 quarterbacks better than him. Maybe Patrick Mahomes on his best day, right? I mean, on his best day, Matthew Stafford, when you look at the throws yesterday, I think that's what really made me feel so good about his performance. It wasn't just a deep ball, wasn't just an intermediate route. He used all the clubs in his bag. You saw platform throws. You saw just the slick sidearm throws.
Yeah. I mean, you actually saw, I mean, not that he was running around out there like Lamar Jackson, but he was out there making plays with his feet, whether it was that little shoulder dip that he does, that little slide up. We saw him run for a first down at one point. He just looked far fresher than we've seen him really at any point. Even in that first year, as good as he was, this looked different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I always like to pick a play that no one's going to talk about today. How about the failed flea flicker attempt where he doesn't take the hit and he just dirts it and throws it in the ground? That's a savvy move for a veteran quarterback that could have absolutely just destroyed a drive right there. And you talk about that fire. I loved his speech, his little huddle break speech there in the locker room after when he said, whatever the F the outside world thought this team was going to look like, they don't have an effing clue. That just shows you. I mean, guys that have done it all, won it all, been there, won that. I mean, the first to 50,000 yards, the seventh fastest, 300 touchdowns. When you get to that level, you need to find things and just continue to motivate yourselves. And he said that, hey, none of the offseason stuff led to more motivation because he's already that motivated himself. But I think the other big takeaway I have as far as Matthew Stafford and this offense was just how efficient they were, how methodical they were. You look at the first scoring drive that was capped off by that Kyren Williams touchdown. That went 16 plays, lasted over 9 minutes. To start the second half, the Rams went on a 10-play drive that lasted over 6 minutes. Then after the defense forced a 3 and out, the offense went on a 9-play, 5-minute drive that ended in a Brett Maher field goal. And then every game, Travis, there's this moment, I knew the game was over moment when, and that came to me after that 14-play touchdown drive that lasted 6 minutes that put the Rams up 24-13. So Rams go 11 for 17 on third down. That played a big role in sustaining those long drives. But I think we're going to see that this year as the defense continues to gain experience, and we're going to break the defense down tomorrow. You're going to see methodical drives from this Rams offense.
I think it was a huge part of their game plan yesterday. You could see it. That it took me maybe about a half a quarter, about halfway through that first drive to kind of really understand what it was that they were doing. They weren't snapping the ball till there were 2 or 3 seconds left on the play clock. That wasn't because they couldn't get lined up. That wasn't because they weren't organized. It wasn't because Sean McVay wasn't getting the play in time or Matthew Stafford was having trouble understanding what it is they wanted to do. This was part of the game plan. Keep the defense off the field. Move the ball methodically. When there are a chance to take a big chunk, let's take it, but let's spin some clock. This is not going to be that, we saw it a few times. We saw it on their second drive was that 3 and out where all of a sudden a minute and a half goes. I was like, oh boy. And they very quickly went back to the other way where they just grind clock, go down to 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds left on that play clock. They did it all afternoon long. It wasn't a coincidence. It's part of their game plan. And it was very, very smart.
Absolutely. And to have Matthew Stafford just run this offense like he knows how, that really changes everything. He's getting my game ball. Of course, the offensive line, they stepped up, didn't allow a single sack. But Matthew Stafford, he ends up with that game ball. If you look at his numbers, no touchdowns. It goes 24 for 38, 334 yards, but wasn't close to throwing a pick. He was in complete control. He was sharp all day long. And we know that an elite quarterback, that wins you games in this league. He's getting my game ball.
Yeah, he's a great choice. I really do think there are maybe 10 or 12 different guys you could give one to in this game, and I don't think it would be a bad choice. Stafford's near the top of the list. I'll give it to the 5 guys up front. We can hand out 5 of them, or we can cut one ball 5 ways. That, like you said, no sacks, only 3 pressures on 35 dropbacks. And you look at his uniform at the end of the day, he had a little blue smudge on the back where it said Stafford, and that was it. He was clean as a whistle. He looked great. I'm going to give it to those 5 guys up front. They were brilliant.
Yeah, definitely a great choice there. He was clean. He was rejuvenated, re-energized. I think revenge season Stafford is on. But coming up in our next segment here, we've got our first segment of winners and losers, and we're tackling the receivers. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Think about what's going on in the football season, right? You need to find the new people that fit into your organization right away. That's what LinkedIn Jobs can help you do. You add your job and the purple hiring hashtag frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and find them faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode, and you can be a member of the Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're doing our first round of winners and losers, and we're going to start with the receivers, and we have to start with Puka Nacua. Get those Puka shells ready. As the conductor of the Puka Nacua I've trained all off season, I look back this morning, and it was completely full. If you don't know, now you know. The hype is real on Puka Nacua, and I still feel like I felt like this offseason he's going to be the most impactful Rams rookie since Cooper Kupp. And even when Cooper Kupp gets back, he's still going to be a part of this offense moving forward.
I'm going to give you a little love here, D-Mac, because you were calling it. You go all the way back to when they drafted him. Certainly once training camp started, when we saw him that early preseason game, you were on the Puka Nacua train. You had your overalls and the little conductor's hat and the whistle, and you were doing the whole thing. So kudos to you. You were right. He was terrific. Look, I don't want to just blow past it because it's a big deal, but it wasn't even the 10 catches for the 119 yards that really kind of jumped out at me. That's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. Dude's tough. Dude was making some tough catches. He's on the ground a lot. He's willing to sacrifice his body. He's a big physical guy that's willing to do some things. And you can tell, and this is kind of corny or dorky or whatever, dude loves playing football, right? Like he's running, he smashes his face on the ground, diving for a ball that he misses. He's running back to the huddle with a smile on his face. I mean, you can't like those guys enough. They're just so good to have on your team. He absolutely lit it up. I guarantee you there's going to be a stampede to get him on fantasy teams starting, whenever the waiver wire is open for opportunities there, him and Atwell both. But, and you said it, D-Mac, I'm glad you brought it up. As good as he was, I want to see how good he can be when Cooper Kupp is out on that field as well. When Cooper Kupp starts to draw some attention, which he always will, what does that do for Nacua? Because they're going to start the game plan for him now. He had such a big day. It's not just, who's 17? Okay, well, now we got to deal with number 17. When Kupp comes back, I'm excited to see what the two of them look like together.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on a lot of those points because I think the first one is that youthful exuberance, the joy that he plays with, just saying he loves football. I think that he probably is still smiling as we speak, could wipe that smile off his face. And you saw how infectious that energy is. And he also mentioned how tough he is. And when I looked at him in the offseason, it was those tough contested catches.
Yes.
It was how well he fit in this Rams offense. A lot of people say, oh, he's Bobby Trees 2.0. What I saw was almost a combination of Bobby Trees and Cooper Kupp in that first game. And I think one of the pivotal catches that probably won't get talked about, though, is that 2nd and goal at the 17. It looked like, okay, Rams are going to settle for a field goal. That 16-yard catch there with the yak. It was a perfect throw by Matthew Stafford, led him away from the defender to pick up those extra yards. But that is where you saw the toughness there. I mean, this guy is tough to bring down. He's strong. He gets pushed out of bounds at the Seattle one, and they punched in with that Kyron Williams touchdown. Then that sweet toe-dragging catch along the sideline for 21 yards on that 3rd down. That one made the hair on my neck stand up. That one gave me goosebumps because, one, that's a throw that really only a handful of quarterbacks in this league can make, right? And that was a beautiful ball, but that 3rd down conversion will go on to put the Rams up 24-13. I think Cooper Kupp, there's no way you can keep this guy off the field when Kupp is back.
No, I'm so glad you brought up that one play down the right side on that 3rd down because it was a great catch. I'd taken nothing away from Nacua. That throw was an 11 out of 10. That's one of those throws that when it leaves his hand, like, where in the world? Oh, okay. That it was perfect. And I think that just speaks to his confidence. Going back to Stafford here for a second, going back to his health, that he had the time. He certainly has the wherewithal and the ability to deliver that throw. That's not a throw that a bunch of guys, even in the NFL, can make. That's a throw that maybe 10 guys in that whole league feel comfortable even trying, much less executing. He dropped it in there perfectly. Nacua made a great catch. And it was at that moment, D-Mac, you're like, wait a second. This is a little bit better. This is a little bit different than I thought it might be. And from that point forward, they just absolutely took over the game. It was a tremendous afternoon.
Absolutely. And I think you look at that throw right there, just throws to a landmark, just an incredible throw by one of the best arm talents we've seen in this league ever. Yep. But yeah, I bring my facts to the fight, Travis, and I will say that was just a good performance by Puka Nacua. It was downright historic. First regular season game in the NFL. Puka led the team with 10 catches, tied 2-2 for the team lead with 119 yards, like you mentioned. Led the team with 15 targets, averaged 11.9 yards per reception. But he became the first rookie to go over 100 yards in their NFL debut since Jamar Chase in 2021. And it's just one game, but he leads all rookies with wide receiver yards. He became the 4th player in NFL history to have 10 receptions and over 100 receiving yards in his first game, 119 receiving yards with the most receiving yards in a rookie debut in Rams history. He's just a 2nd player drafted in the 5th round or later with 100-plus receiving yards in his debut. I got like 10 more to read, but I'm going to stop right there. And I will say this. I feel like he's going to be the Rams version of Austin Reeves. Right? I mean, that player that you just instantly fall in love with, the fans love that. He's just going to have a big impact right from the get-go. Well,
that enthusiasm is certainly infectious like that. I think that's what you're talking about, that instant, like, hey, I like that guy because he seems to be enjoying what he's out there doing. I want to throw something else in there too, D-Mac, that we're talking about with Nacua. He had a pretty bad drop in the first half, right? A ball that was right on his chest plate. You could not have put it in a better spot, and he dropped it. And a lot of times, a veteran quarterback, when he sees a rookie wide receiver have an easy drop like that, it's like, all right, I'm done. I'm moving on to the next guy because I can't trust you. That didn't happen. You can tell that Puka Nacua has earned Matthew Stafford's trust because he went right back to him after that. This wasn't all right, I'm going to start looking for my familiar faces. I'm going to look for Higbee. I'm going to look for Van Jefferson. I'm going to start throwing the guys that I've been around with a little bit more. That the trust factor between those two guys, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I go back to what Cooper Kupp looked like right out of the chute, and you could tell his quarterbacks trusted him right away. I got a little bit of that yesterday, especially after that drop, because look, drops are going to happen occasionally, but he went right back to him, and the dude showed out from that point forward. Matthew Stafford has his trust, and he certainly has Rams fans' trust as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He talked about that after the game, that after he dropped that first one, he's like, okay, I'm with Matthew Stafford. He's one of the best to ever do it. And he mentioned how Stafford puts him in the great spots, right? Puts you in the perfect spot for the catch transition to go vertical and how well those balls are placed. So, yeah, definitely a connection between those two early on. Now, our next winner is Tutu Atwell. Tutu truthers rise. I think the Tutu Atwell breakout season could be here. I think a lot of people like to mention Creed Humphrey. I like to see Creed Humphrey catch a 44-yard deep ball like that.
Look, I am not a Tutu Atwell truther, right? I needed to see it. And he was really good. And he did hit a couple of big ones, and that's what he's going to be able to do. He's incredibly fast, and that brings an entirely different element to what you're doing offensively. But what I liked is that they were able to use him as a wide receiver. He wasn't just a run past the last guy on the field and see if we can throw one over everybody's head kind of player. This was a guy that caught some balls in between the hash marks. This was somebody that was running the complete route tree. I really, really enjoyed seeing that. Now, his size scares me to death, right? You look at Nacua, he's 6'2", he's 200 some odd pounds. He's going to be able to take a shot or two. Tutu is a smaller dude. He's a smaller guy. He's a different type of wide receiver. So every time that somebody gets their hands on him, I kind of cringe a little bit, but he was terrific yesterday. I can't wait to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always something you're going to consider with Tutu Atwell is the wear and tear of the NFL. But I think that's what I was most encouraged by in his first start. If he caught a couple bombs, it'd be okay. He's fast. He's Tutu Atwell. We know we're going to get some of those. But you saw catches in traffic. You saw him making plays all over the field. He was going over the middle, hauling in catches. So I think that was very promising. The fact that he has that understanding of this offense. And I think, too, he's someone that stepped up when they needed it the most. I mean, 119
Absolutely.
yards, but on over like almost half the targets of Puka Nacua. And I think the big play of the game, third quarter, Van just blew the layup there, right? And it's 3rd and 8, 2-2 in motion. He split Higbee and Puka, and Stafford found him on a perfectly thrown deep ball down the right side for 44 yards. That set up the touchdown a few plays later by Kyron Williams. And all four, that play right there just changed the game. And then you look later in the game, too. In the fourth quarter alone, he had 3 catches for 50 yards. All 3 of those catches were for first down. So, yeah, he was massive, and hopefully this is going to be his breakout year.
You mentioned it, the drop that Van Jefferson has. If he doesn't score a touchdown there, and I think he probably does, he gets very, very close to, inside the 10, probably able to run that out the way that he did. I thought that was a huge moment for the team, and Atwell in particular. They immediately came back. It wasn't one of those, we had our shot. This is the play that we needed to hit. It didn't happen, and then you're out, you punt, and then who knows what happens after that. They missed a golden opportunity, a good throw, just a drop like we talked about. It's going to happen occasionally, and they came right back. And that Atwell was the guy that was able to come back for him was huge. An incredibly resilient performance across the board. Now, not a ton of adversity, but the little adversity that the Rams did face in that game, they bounced back from it really well. And I can't wait for Sunday. Bring on the Niners. Let's go. Let's play this game on Tuesday night, because this is as crisp and as good as the Rams have looked in quite some time.
And how about this, Trav? What if I told you that after the first game, there'd be 7 receivers with 100-yard games so far in the NFL, and 2 of them will be Rams, and none of them would be Cooper Kupp?
It's hard to imagine. It's hard. We were talking last week about the one guy you can't afford to lose is Cooper Kupp. Stafford 1, Kupp 2, Donald 3. Well, maybe that was not exactly right, because those guys balled out.
Yeah, no one can replace what Kupp does, but hopefully by the time he returns, they're going to have some Stafford's going to have chemistry with these younger receivers, and they're going to be better off because of it. But coming up in our next segment, Travis, we got our first round of losers and why the Rams proved that they are not tanking this season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right. Are you ready for the NFL season? You should be, because there are incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Did you do it yesterday? Have you done it yet? Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off the NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Do you see that $4 on YouTube TV? Not a bad way to do it. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. Get down on your Rams, right? They're hot right now. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you do not want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
And welcome back to a Victory Monday here on Locked On Rams. And Travis, here in our third segment, our first round of losers. And of course, we just mean that as far as in the game. We're not calling him a loser or anything like that. But I think you have to start with Van Jefferson. I mean, there's a big year for Van Jefferson, not looking over his shoulder with Cooper Kupp out. He's in a contract year. He's WR1, and he finishes with 4 catches for 24 yards on 5 targets. I do want to mention that big catch he had on 3rd and 10 there in their first drive. That was huge. But you can't not mention 1st and 10. Rams are on the 35 down 13-7. Would have been a 65-yard touchdown, and he blows the layup. Now, how would you rank that catch attempt on a scale of Nelson Aguilar to Kadarius Toney?
Way more Kadarius Toney than I would like. I can tell you that. It was way too much towards that side. Look, it was a bad drop. He did not really show out the way that I think that maybe we were expecting in the light of Cooper Kupp being out. But can I be slightly optimistic on Van Jefferson? Because the other 2 guys were so good, by comparison, his day is going to look pretty pedestrian. 4 catches, 24 yards. And it wasn't the best day in the world. And he did have that drop, and he wasn't nearly the featured guy. But again, I think that probably Pete Carroll and his staff, when they looked at the Rams getting ready for this game, knowing that Cooper Kupp wasn't going to play, the one guy that they were familiar with a little bit is Van Jefferson. I'm sure there was some game planning that went along to try to deal with Jefferson that wasn't there for Atwell, that wasn't there for Puka Nacua. And, those other 2 guys took advantage of it. Now, he needs to play better, right? He's going to need to do more because Cooper Kupp, fingers crossed, is going to be back before too long. We know that those other 2 guys were able to step up. It's up to Van Jefferson to make sure that what happened yesterday doesn't happen through the rest of the season because they're going to need him at some point. And yesterday was a pretty mediocre beginning for Van.
Yeah, it's a great point. As far as the game planning goes, I mean, he's the person that you thought was going to be featured the most. And if you look at his route running, it was crisp. You want to see him get out of his breaks a little easier and get open more, but still kind of 4 of his 5 targets. And if he makes that play and he goes to the house or gets close to it, you're talking about someone who almost has a 100-yard game. So, yeah, you can't give up on Van just yet. I'm sure he's kicking himself about that one. No one's more upset with himself than that. So I think that he's going to hopefully pick it up there in game 2 because he's the one that has the experience. But before we head out of here, Travis, another thing I want to just mention is that now we can put this whole topic of the offseason to bed that the Rams are tanking for Caleb Williams. This team has an elite quarterback, has an elite coach. When you have those 2 key ingredients, you are not going to tank, right? This organization is too competitive. You still have talent at important positions, and this team looks like if everything breaks right, you could win 9 or 10 games, maybe even more this season. Who knows?
Well, so we were talking during the pregame show yesterday. We were talking with JB Long, who is the voice of the Rams, who just does an unbelievable job calling Rams games. And he threw something at us that I'd never heard it put quite like this. And I'm just going to flat out steal it. JB, I'm taking it from you, and we're going to move from your thing to my thing. He called it the CQI, right? And this is the little triangle that all NFL teams are successful or not based on. It's C, coach, Q, quarterback, I, injury, right? They got the quarterback. They got the coach. The injury is the great unknown, right? You just don't know what's waiting for you if Matthew Stafford and that offensive line stays healthy, if Puka Nacua stays healthy, if Aaron Donald stays healthy, if the I in the CQI remains on the positive side for your football team, they got a chance in these games because the coach obviously knows what he's doing. The quarterback obviously knows what he's doing. These are some of the best in the business at what they do. It's that eye part that you got to keep your eye on. We thought maybe that they were on the wrong side of it with Cooper Kupp. Turns out they were able to not only survive that, but thrive in spite of it. So the CQI, keep your eye on that because if those two of those 3, and certainly 3 of those 3 things are clicking, the Rams got a chance to beat just about anybody.
Absolutely. You can't account for that. I mean, you just never know. I mean, maybe it's odd years, right? 2021, they were pretty much injury-free for the most part. 2022, like I said, it was a season of Squid Game. You had guys going down every play, every game. Then this year, you get off to a good start. So you hope that maybe made some adjustments in the offseason with the training and health program. We know that they're going to try to explore all avenues when it comes to that. And like you said, the most important thing is Matthew Stafford's arm looks as healthy as I've seen it in years. And that's the most important thing because there's one thing that was getting hit last year, right? Got hit so many times, was the most in a Sean McVay led team in the history of this franchise. But I think, too, just his arm wasn't right at the beginning. I mean, he was throwing towels during training camp. So the fact that his arm is fully healthy, that is what we need. And, yeah, credit to this O-line, keeping him upright, keeping him vertical. And I think that is the number one key. But, yeah, I hate to pour some cold water on Rams fans out there that wanted Caleb Williams in a Rams uniform. It's just not going to happen.
Not like that, right? The eye is the part that you have no control over. Look, Matthew Stafford is healthy. Aaron Donald is healthy. All these wide receivers are healthy. The offensive line is healthy. And sometimes you have bad luck. That's last year. Sometimes you have pretty good luck. That's a couple of years ago. And yesterday they stayed healthy and they looked good. Caleb Williams, not going to happen if this group stays relatively healthy. They're going to win some football games. It was a terrific start to the season.
Great start of this Rams season, 1-0, and we're going to continue to break down this game tomorrow. We're going to throw out some grades, some more winners and losers, and look at this Rams defense. That's coming up tomorrow on Locked On Rams. But that's going to do it for today's episode. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X at DMAC_LA, and you can also follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?